Okay, good afternoon to everybody. We will be continuing with world religions. Uh, Up to our yesterday's discussion, we looked at the arguments presented to prove the existence of God or to say that God exists. Now we looked at several different arguments to prove the existence of God. Now today what I would like to do is look at the denial of the existence of God, the arguments that have been presented by other religions, other religious systems including Buddhism, to prove the non-existence of God. So up to this point we looked at various different arguments to prove the existence of God, to say that God exists. Interestingly, there are also many arguments presented by other religions and those who don't believe in God to prove that there is no God. So on the one hand, in the studying world religions, it is very important for us to see how theistic religions have presented arguments to prove the existence of God. And at the same time, we have other religions, particularly the non-theistic religions, presenting arguments to disprove the existence of God. Now we know that basically non-theistic religions such as Jainism and Buddhism have the denial of God as one of their fundamental features. Between these two religions, Buddhism is known in the world as the major non-theistic religion. Therefore, it is important to know how or on what grounds Buddhism denies the existence of God. Now, when you look at the world religions, Buddhism is the main non-theist world religion. Jainism is also very important. Jainism is a non-theistic religion. In fact, next week my lecture will be 24th on Jainism because as a non-theistic religion. But if you look at the spread of Jainism, Jainism is basically limited to India. Very recently, of course, in the last century, and now it has been moving to Western countries. But usually it is a small religion if you take the number-wise. But history-wise, it is even older to Buddhism. So Jainism and Buddhism, but particularly we will focus on Buddhism today in this discussion. Therefore, it is important to know how or on what ground Buddhism denies the existence of God. Because non-theistic religions, since Buddhism is the main non-theistic religion, it is useful to note at the beginning that Buddhism does not deny the existence of divine beings who are born in different divine abodes as a result of their good deeds. What is denied is being a being characterized as creator and maintainer of the universe and redeemer of people, and who is omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Now, the point is that if you look at concept of different gods, Buddhism does not deny the existence of gods or divine beings. Now, we have what is called Dibbaloka. So, divine abodes, divine worlds, where different degrees or levels of divine beings are born as a result of their good deeds. So, that is not rejected. Actually, what is rejected is a being or God characterized as creator, maintainer, and redeemer. So, we discussed these things in previous sessions. So, the God is the creator of the universe, and also God is the one who maintains the universe, and redeemer of the people. God redeems people. And then God is characterized as omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and omnipresent. So what Buddhism says doesn't exist is that type of God. Actually, in textual language, we have these concepts. We have concept of Deva. Also, we have concept of Devata. Now, Deva, Devata are not rejected. We have Deva Putta Sanyutta in the Sanyutta Nikaya, Devata Sanyutta in the Sanyutta Nikaya. So, Deva, Deva Putta, not rejected. However, what is rejected is the concept of Issaro. Issaro, Katta, Nimmata. Or sometimes use the concept of Abhisaro. Now, these concepts are, this is the concept that is rejected. Issaro, Katta, Nimmata. Issara, Ishvara in Sanskrit. Katta, author, doer of the world, creator. Nimmata, creator. So, Katta, Nimmata, Issaro. Or Abhisaro. We will see this term also in the Rattapala Sutta. So, this concept is the one that is rejected, okay? Not Deva or Devata. In other words, Buddhism doesn't deny divine beings, but Buddhism denies that there exists a creator God. So, this is basically the Buddhist position. Now, we will see what are the, how does Buddhism do that? On what grounds Buddhism deny the concept of God? Before getting into this, there is a tendency, particularly among the theistic philosophers of religion, to associate Buddhism with some form of theism or concept of God. Now, you know, if you look at the study of religion field today, religion is studies in the universities, in the higher education systems in two different setups. One thing is religion is studies as theology. The other is religion is studies as religion, department of religions. So, in the universities you will find departments of theology. Theology, theo means really God, so theology departments. And also, you know, the concept of God is studied, religion is studied in the department of religions. Now, there is a tendency, particularly among the theistic philosophers of religion, to associate Buddhism with some form of theism or concept of God. Now, a lot of people try to say that Buddhism has a concept of creator God, you know, some manner. Now, we will see how they are doing that. Now in the academic education today, in theology, in the study of religion, basically you find you know, these ideas being presented. Some say that the Buddha did not deny the concept of God, but he simply did not talk about it because God was not relative to his religious system. Now, you know, this is a very interesting idea presented by some people. They say that, look, Buddha never said there is no God. Simply Buddha did not talk about it. Because if you take the world religions, all the world religions, like if you take the 5 major religions in the world, Judaism, Christianity, Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, you can put all the other 4 religions on one side and Buddhism on the other side. So, all the 4 religions are theistic religions. They believe in God. Now, Buddhism is the only major religion that does not believe in God. So, in a way, a lot of people want to say Buddhism is also some type of involved in some type of God, or Buddhism also has belief in God. Now, why? Because the Buddhism, in a way, you can see is a challenge for other religions. Because whereas all the other religions believe in God, Buddhism says there is no God. Now, you know, this is really in a way you can see that it's a serious thing, because Buddhism is a challenge in that sense. Now, if you look at in a broader sense, Buddhism says that there is no God. And then those who don't believe in God, basically we say atheist, they also say that there is no God. Now, in the modern times, Marxism is very well known for saying that there is no God. Now, usually when you are denying God, then denial of God is considered to be denial of, say, good and bad and right and wrong. I think I said this idea to you earlier also. Now, the concept of atheism. Atheism is the belief that there is no God. Belief that we say no God. This is called atheism. Actually, when somebody we say in English language, when someone is an atheist, also this means equal to non-believer. People who don't believe in God. Now, if a person doesn't believe in God, if person rejects God, usually non-believer understood to be, say, morally bad person. If you said you are a non-atheist, you don't believe in God, then usually it is understood as, okay, he's a bad person, morally bad person. Because if you don't believe in God, how can you be a good person? Because to that extent, concept of God has been identified with religion. So if it is a religion, there must be a concept of God. If a person doesn't believe in religion, he is a bad person. This is the basic equation, basic idea. So whenever you say there is no God, you are considered to be a morally bad person. But then what is the situation of Buddhism? The Buddhism from the very beginning said that there is no God. Actually, even during the time of the Buddha, this position was very problematic for the Brahmins who believed in God. Now, in the Buddhist literature, we have this word called Venayika. Now, Buddha denied both God and soul. Now, both these concepts are central to theistic religions, God and soul. And earlier we saw Atma and Paramatma. Paramatma means macrocosm or the universal soul. Atma means, Pudgalatma means individual soul. So in the Hinduism you have Paramatma and also Pudgalatma. Pudgalatma means individual soul, Paramatma means absolute soul or the universal soul. So same thing, you have the human beings and then you have Issara. Issaro Kattani Mata, creator. Now, if a person doesn't believe in Atma and also if a person doesn't believe in the concept of God, even in the Indian tradition, you are considered to be morally not good. So, in order to refer to Buddha, sometimes Brahmins use the word, Brahmins accuse the Buddha to be Venayiko. Venayiko Samano Gotamo. Venayika means one who advocates the destruction, vinasa. So Venayika means one who advocates the destruction. Destruction of what? Destruction of soul. So the Buddha says that there is no soul. So therefore they describe Buddha as Venayika. And also in the general Indian philosophy, general Indian tradition, you have two different traditions. One tradition is called Astika. Astika tradition. Other tradition is called Nastika tradition. Astika means positive. Nastika means negative. Astika means positive, Nastika means negative. Now, Astika means Brahmin tradition. It comes from Asti. Asti means it is there, yes, present. Now, what is Asti? Atma and the Ishvara. So, there is God, there is Creator God, and there is also soul. So, they are called Astika traditions. And then Nastika traditions are traditions that deny the concept of soul and God. Actually, what are the traditions in India that came under Nastika? Basically, under Nastika tradition, it was Buddhism, and the other one was Charvaka. Charvaka means materialism. In the Samanyapala Sutta, you have Ajita Kesakambali representing materialism. In the sense, there is no rebirth, life is destroyed at the death, there is no soul. So, materialist rejected the Atma on the ground that there is only soul. Okay? So, they rejected the Atma, there is no soul, only there is matter. I'm sorry, I think I wrongly put it earlier. So, only there is matter, there is no soul. So, because they thought that only there is matter, they said that there is no soul. So, but Buddha said that there is no soul, but Buddha did not say that everything is matter. According to Buddha, although there is no soul, there is vijnana, there is consciousness. Okay? So, not everything is matter, not everything is rupa. So, but basically because of this distinction, they called Buddhism to be nastika, negative. Along with Buddhism, they dumped together Buddhism and Charvaka or Ajita Kesakambali's philosophy together with Buddhism because both denied Atma. But we know that Buddhism denied Atma for different reasons. Ajita Kesakambala and later Charvaka philosophy rejected the concept of Atma because they were materialists. According to them, in the universe, in the world, there is only matter, no mind. So that is materialism. But Buddhism is not a materialism. Okay? Buddhism accepts there is rupa and also there is chitta. Knowing Abhidhamma, Paramatta Dhamma sa chitta, chetasika, rupa, nibbana. So rupa is matter, chitta chetasika mind. So according to Abhidhamma Asanga, chitta chetasika rupa means matter, chitta chetasika means mind and constituents of mind. So but anyhow in the Indian tradition, they put Buddhism in the Nastika group. Nastika means rejecting soul and God. Actually, basically this view is presented with reference to the concept of soul, but this Venayika, all these things are negative descriptions of Buddhism. Basically, Buddhism rejects the concept of soul, Atma, and also the concept of God. However, today, when we look at the world, we can see that the old world religions come together. They are being taught in the universities. Now, when you look at old world religions, you can see that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and also Hinduism, they are all accept God. So only Buddhism is the religion that doesn't accept God. So there is an effort on the scholars' side to include Buddhism also in that category. Okay? They wanted to find a way to include Buddhism also in that category. Now, some say that the Buddha did not deny the concept of God, but he simply did not talk about it because God was not relevant to his religious system. So the very popular idea is, some people say that in Buddhism, they say that Buddha never denied the concept of God. They say that Buddha simply did not talk about it. Because for the Buddha's system, God is not relevant, they say. So simply because God is not relevant, Buddha did not talk about it. But they say, Buddha never said that there is no God. So this is one view. Actually, I will show you that view is completely wrong. Because clearly, Buddha has said that there is no God. But anyhow, sometimes, when people want to say something, they ignore, they overlook, whatever the evidence sometimes. So they say that Buddha has never said there is no God. So therefore, whether God exists or not, according to Buddhism, you can't say. So Buddha simply has not spoken about God. So that is one position. Okay. Number two is some others like Raimondo Panikkar. Now this is another philosophy of religion scholar, say that the Buddha knew that we cannot talk about God in human language, and therefore he was silent about God. This view indicates that the Buddha in fact accepted the existence of God, he simply did not talk about it. Now this is another view. This view has been presented by mainly by the scholar called Raimondo Panikkar. He is an Indian scholar, I think the Mexican nationality, originally from the Indian. So Raimondo Panikkar, he says that Buddha did not talk about God because you cannot use human language in order to talk about God. Now that is even more interesting because the first view says that Buddha never talked about God. And then the second view try to say why Buddha did not talk about God. So the first view says Buddha never mentioned God, Buddha never referred to God, never talked about. And then second view says why. According to it, Buddha knew that we cannot talk about God in human language, and therefore he was silent about it. So this view says that Buddha was silent about it. Now number one is also we can say Buddha simply did not talk means Buddha was silent. Number two, we try to say why Buddha was silent. The reason why Buddha was silent about it because you cannot use human language in order to talk about God. Now the argument is this. Now if you take language, language is made by human beings. Language is being used by people to talk about ordinary things in the world. Now God is transcendental. What is the meaning of transcendental? That means God transcends the world. God is beyond the world. God is not a part of this world. So we say God is transcendental. And then we say language is worldly. So two different things. God is transcendental. Language is mundane or worldly. We can use actually two Pali terms to clarify this. Now we can say language is Lokiya and God is Lokuttara. Lokuttara means in English we say going so transcendent. God is transcendental. Transcends means goes beyond. So God is Loka Uttara. Actually Loka Uttara means really the transcendental, transcendence. So we can say language is Lokiya. God is Lokuttara, Loka Uttara, beyond the world. So their argument is this. How can you use language which is Lokiya in order to talk about God who is Lokuttara? Clear? How can you use language which is Lokiya, worldly, in order to talk about God who is Lokuttara or transcendental? In other words, the idea is that you cannot use language to talk about Lokuttara or transcendental things. Language is worldly. Language belongs to this world. You can't talk about it you can't use about it to talk about God. Now this is basically the idea. So Raimondo Panikkar says that Buddha was silent about God simply because Buddha knew that you can't talk about. Now this Raimondo Panikkar's idea is very interesting. According to it, Buddha is one who was very faithful to the concept of God. Even some people who believe in God have tried to talk about God, try to describe. But Buddha kept completely silent according to this view because Buddha knew that you can never use language in order to talk about God. So therefore, according to this Raimondo Panikkar's idea, Actually, Buddha is a very good theist. Buddha believes in God, but only thing is, Buddha never talked about it. Okay? Buddha never talked about it because Buddha knew that you cannot talk about transcendental things through worldly language. But you can separately think whether this argument is true or not. Whether language is worldly, does that mean that anything about transcendental we cannot talk about it? You know, you can really examine that argument. That's also part of your critical thinking about it. Because now if you take Lokuttara, in Buddhism, where does Lokuttara come? Lokuttara comes in the discourses and also in the Abhidhamma, Lokuttara Chitta. Now Abhidhamma talks about Lokuttara things, right? So without much problem. Abhidhamma talks about, Abhidhamma discusses Lokuttara things, Lokiya things and Lokuttara things. So the argument that you cannot use language which is Lokiya in order to talk about Lokuttara things is problematic argument. But anyhow, first try to understand it. So some others like Raimando Panikar says that Buddha, so according to his view, this view indicates that the Buddha in fact accepted the existence of God. He simply did not talk about it. So when you say that Buddha did not talk about God because you cannot talk about God by using language, it automatically makes Buddha accepts the concept of God. Now you know why all these ideas are presented by scholars, because as I said earlier, presence of Buddhism as a non-theistic religion is a, the pretty embarrassing thing in a way. Because usually they want to say that if you don't believe in God, you are not a good person. You are not a moral person. You remember in my yesterday's discussion, we had moral argument for the existence of God, right? Moral argument means morality comes from God according to them. Good and bad ideas coming from, the ideas about good and bad coming from God. It is the God who gives morality. Now, if that is true, if you don't believe in God, you don't believe in morality also, right? So the person who doesn't believe in God is a bad person, not believing in morality. So you can see how the argument goes, because you connect morality with the concept of God. So no God, no morality. So if you deny the existence of God, you also deny the existence of morality. Now yesterday I tried to show you, according to Buddhism, morality doesn't depend on God. Morality depends on many other things, right? Attanang upamang katva, and so on, I gave you some criteria. And so anyhow, this argument is interesting, some others. So these people say that Buddha was silent about God simply because God cannot be spoken of ordinary language. In fact, in Raimando Panikar's book, he connects this thing to avyakruta questions, tapaniya panya, unanswered questions, right? So there are certain 10 questions that were not answered by the Buddha. They are called tapaniya panya. Now this tapaniya panya, unanswered questions, occur in Chula Malunke Putta Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. Okay? Chula Malunke Putta Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. There are 10 questions that Buddha did not answer. Sassato loko, asassato loko, antava loko, anantava loko, tang jivang, tang sarirang, and so on. There are 10 views. Actually, this concept of God, the problem of God is not among these 10 things. Okay? But Raimando Panikar seems to think that concept of God is also something that Buddha was silent about it. Okay? So anyhow, I am just trying to show you how different the religious philosophers try to indicate that Buddhism accepts, the Buddha accepts some sort of concept of God. Now, another view which does not try to ascribe God to Buddhism proposes that both theistic and non-theistic religions accept a concept of transcendental, which the theistic religions hold to be personal, such as God in different names, and the non-theistic religions hold to be impersonal, like Nirvana, Brahman, etc. This position was proposed by the scholar called John Hick in his book An Interpretation of Religion in 1988. All these interpretations aim at underplaying the non-theistic character in Buddhism. All three views are wrong. Okay, according to my understanding, all these three views. Number one says Buddha never denied the concept of God. Number two view says Buddha was silent about the existence of God because language cannot use that. Number three view is a little bit more sophisticated. It says that it doesn't say Buddha accepted God, but it says all the religions accept something called transcendent. Okay? Now, according to this analysis, some religions articulate, describe what they believe to be transcendental in the form of personal God. Other religions articulate what they believe to be transcendental in the form of not personal God, but some kind of concept. Now, but both these religions ultimately refer to something transcendental. So, in that sense, Buddhism and all these religions are in a way have in common some kind of idea of transcendental. So, it is something like this. So, according to this view, so this is the ultimate aim of the religion, transcendental. So, according to this view, all the religions accept what is called transcendental. However, some religions say, we can say, represent the transcendent as persons. Say, for example, we can say God, we can say Allah, we can say Krishna, and so on. Now, present transcendental as persons. So, transcendental, but it is present as a person, okay. And then some other religions present transcendental in impersonal terms. For example, Nirvana, Brahman, and so on. Now, according to this view, so certain things present as, now all religions are one according to this view, because all religions accept something transcendental. Only difference is some religions describe this transcendental as a personal God. Some religions describe this transcendental as something non-personal, Nirvana, Brahman, say in Zen Buddhism, Satori, or in those terms. Now this again is effort to make ultimately all theistic religions and non-theistic religion one group. Remember, as I said earlier, existence of Buddhism as a non-theistic religion is has become a problem, has become an issue. For for people to explain how can there be religion without God. This is a pretty difficult situation for many. So therefore, those people who believe in theistic religions, God, they want to show that Buddhism is no different. Buddhism is also. Now, if they can really show that Buddhism is also theistic, Buddhism is also believe in some form of God, then of course all the religion in the world will be God-centered, right? Now, what we need to do is see whether actually this is true. Does Buddhism believe in some sort of concept of God? Is there any concept of God in Buddhism? Does God play any important role in Buddhism? So we need to look at these problems, okay? So in today's discussion, actually in the background of these views, what I would like to do is to see how does Buddhism has responded to this issue, whether there is God or not. So when we look at the text, we can see that the Buddhist position is really not what these scholars say. Now I say there are instances where the Buddha clearly says that there is no God. Now many people say that Buddha has never said anything about God. And also many say that Buddha has never denied the concept of God. According to them, Buddha has simply said nothing. But I show you there are instances where the Buddha clearly says that there is no God. For instance, in the Rattapala Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya says that the world does not have a protection and there is no God. Attano loko anabhissaro. Are you familiar with this statement in the Rattapala Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya? Now again, this is one of the very interesting, very beautiful, very important suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya. You all read it. You can, the very important. In this story, Rattapala is a very young, wealthy person. And he listens to the Buddha, and then he decides to become a bhikkhu. Now, having become a bhikkhu, sometime he visits his parents. Now, and then having come to see his parents, he was taking rest in the park, King's Park. King heard that Rattapala had come because Rattapala was a very well-known, young, wealthy person. So King came to meet him. And question King asked is, he says that you are such a young person, you are a very young person, why did you become a bhikkhu? Then Rattapala says that, well, great king, I became a bhikkhu seeing 4 different natures in the world. I became a bhikkhu seeing 4 natures in the world. One of the natures he saw in the world is this. Attano loko anabhissaro. Attano loko anabhissaro. Attana. Attana means actually Tana. Tana means what? Tanang, lenang, parayanang. Protection. So, attano, attano. Attano loko means world does not have a protection. Or world doesn't have a protector. Anabhissaro, na abhissaro. Abhissara means issara, abhissara. These 2 terms are used in the discourses to refer to Creator God. Okay? It's not Deva, it's not Devata, it's not Devaputta. Issara or Abhissara means basically the Creator God. So Rattapala says, I became a bhikkhu seeing that there is no protection, there is no God. Now this response is something very interesting because if there is a God, if there is one to protect you, take care of you, you don't have to worry about anything, You trust that God and God will take care of everything. But Rattapala says there is no such God, there is no protection. Okay? So Rattapala says that I became a bhikkhu seeing this nature in the world. The world is protectionless, world is godless. Okay? Now look at the next one. Dhammapada attahi attano natho kohinato parosya One is one's own protector, God. How can there be external protector or God? What is the meaning of Natha? Natha, Sanatha, Anatha, here it is Natha. Attahi attano natho. Actually, Natha again means the protector. So, attahi attano natho, one is one's own protection. Now, Buddha says this very clearly. Now, if there is a protector in the world, Buddha will not say this. When Buddha says, one is one's protector, you have to be your God. There is no any other God. Now, even if there is a God, if that God cannot protect you, then there is no point. Right? But here Buddha very clearly says, one is one's own God, or one is one's own protector. Okay? Natha, actually in Sri Lankan Buddhist tradition, we have a God called Natha. He is the one who is becoming the Maitreya Buddha in the future. So, there are different beliefs. But Natha basically means protector, refuge. Then other discourses, you have this concept of Sanatha, Anatha, with protection, without protection, and so on. So, attahi attano natho, kohi natho parosya. How can there be other God? Now, this statement is a direct statement, there is no other God. If at all, you are your God. Attahi attano natho, oneself is one's God. And kohi natho parosya, how can there be a God outside? How can there be a God externally? So there is no external God. And then you look at the creationist view. Issara Nimmanavada is rejected in Buddhism. In fact, in the Anguttara Nikaya, there is a discourse called Mahatithayatana Sutta. In the Mahatithayatana Sutta, lists about 3 religious views which are not satisfactory. The word used is anasasika, not satisfactory. Now, one of the views is not satisfactory views. People believe that Issara Nimmanavada. Issara Nimmana means Ishvara Nirmana. Ishvara Nirmana, Issara Nimmana means God's creation. Okay? So, Buddha says that Issara Nimmanavada, people believed in Issara Nimmanavada. Buddha says very clearly that Issara Nimmanavada is wrong view. Okay? Now these are directly examples of Buddha rejecting the concept of God. Okay? Now, if Buddha believes that there is a concept of God, now Buddha would have said that, right? If there is a concept of, if there is God in the universe, Buddha could have very clearly said that there is a God. But here when the Buddha says that attano loko anabissaro, Rattapala's statement is that there is no God. And then attahi attano natho. Also this Mahatithayatana Sutta reference where Buddha says that Issara Nimmanavada was wrong. So Issara Nimmanavada is a view held by many people during the time of the Buddha. So these are direct evidence in the discourses. In fact, in the Jatakas, there is some more. In the Jataka, following criticism of the concept of God occurs. Now read that. If God designs the life of the entire world, the glory and the misery, if the good and the evil acts, man is but an instrument of his will and God alone is responsible. If Brahma is Lord of the world, whole world, and creator of the multitude of beings, then why has he ordered misfortune in the world without making the whole world happy? For what purpose has he made the world full of injustice, deceit and falsehood and conceit? The Lord of being is evil in that he ordained injustice when there could have been justice. This comes in the Mahabodhi Jataka. Issaro sabba lokassa sache kappeti jeevitang iddhi vyasana bhavancha kammang kalyana papakam. Niddesakari puriso issaro tena lippati. Sachehi issaro sabbaloke brahma bahu bhutapati pajanang king sabbaloke vidahi alakking king sabbalokang na sukhi akasi. Adhammiyo bhutapati dhamme sati yo vidahi alakking. Now this comes in the Mahabodhi Jataka. This comes in the Jataka book. Some people could say that Jataka stories are a little bit later. Actually, although Jataka stories could be later, the Pali stanzas in the Jataka stories are considered to be actually very old part of the Tripitaka. So in the Jataka, Mahabodhi Jataka, you have this concept. Issaro sabba lokassa sache kappeti jeevitang. Iddhi vasana bhavancha kammang kalyana papakam. So Issaro means the God, the creator God. Sabba lokassa sache kappeti jeevitang. If you were to create the world, let's go to the translation, it is easier. If God designs the life of the entire world, the glory and the misery, the good and the evil acts, man is but an instrument of his will and God alone is responsible. Now what does it say? If God does everything both good and bad, okay, if God does everything, including good and bad, then human being becomes only an instrument. Human being is only a puppet. You know the puppet show? In this country you have puppet shows, right? So somebody does this and somebody does many other things. So it's like God, God is doing the puppet show. So he is really doing things and we are doing things, simply he makes us do these things. That's why he says, if God designs life of the entire world, glory and misery, both good and bad, the good and the evil acts. So actually if God is responsible, he is responsible for all the good and bad acts. Then what happens is, man is but an instrument in his will. So human being is only an instrument with which God does things. And God alone is responsible. So God must be the person who is responsible for everything. If God is creating everything, then human being is only a puppet. God is the one who is responsible, okay? If Brahma is the Lord of the whole world and creator of the multitude of beings, then the question is, why has he ordained misfortune in the world without making the whole world happy? Now, this question is a very, very important question. Now, if God created the world, you remember I described the concept of God in the traditional way. God is all good. God is omniscient. God is all powerful. He can do anything. If God is all good, if he can do anything, the question is, why did he create this world full of trouble? He could have created a better world. He could have created the good world without any problems. Do you see the point? Now if you look at the world, like you can see that so many millions, hundred thousands of people are being killed. Now, Second World War, 6 million Jew people were killed. Now, who are the Jew people? God's chosen people. God's chosen people. Now, 6 million Jews were killed. And then other different wars and, so many people were killed. So, the world is full of suffering. So, the question is, if God is the creator, we can add to it, if God is omniscient, omnipotent and all good, why did he create this kind of world which is very bad? For what purpose has he made the world full of injustice? You look at the world is full of injustice, deceit. People deceive each other, false. People tell lies to each other, conceit. People are conceited. The Lord of being is evil. So then the conclusion is, this creator can't be a good person. This creator must be a bad person. because this world is so bad. In that he ordained injustice when there could have been justice. Actually, he could have created a world with justice. But then, instead of creating a world full of justice, he has created a world without justice. So then the conclusion has to be, this God must be a bad God. This God can't be a omniscient, omnipotent, all good God. Now you see this argument, this argument comes in the Jataka book, is a very, very important argument. Now against the existence of God, there are many arguments have been presented against the existence of God. Now one of the main argument comes in here against the concept of God. Now that argument is called the argument from, we can say, suffering, or argument from evil. Okay? The argument from suffering or argument from evil. Now what is this argument? Actually, if you believe that world was created by God, if world is full of suffering, then how could God create such a world full of suffering? Particularly this question arises when you look at the God, when you characterize God as the all good God, omnibenevolent God. If God is omnibenevolent, if God is all powerful, omniscient, then he could have created the world without suffering. Okay? Now, given the fact that God is omnibenevolent and omniscient and all powerful, how could God create a world full of suffering? So, existence of suffering in the world is taken to be a major argument against the existence of God. Okay? Now, if God created this world, now if we accept the traditional interpretation of God as omniscient, then and all good, such a God could not have created this kind of world. So the argument from the existence of evil is considered to be a very significant argument, okay, against the existence of God. Now when you look at the Buddhist literature, in the Jataka story, you can find this argument. Actually, this argument, not only Buddhist, many people who argue against the existence of God, they use this argument. Okay? In the Western religious literature, also you find this argument. In the modern religious literature, also you find this argument. How can God create the world this nature? How could God create a world full of suffering if God was good? So either we have to accept that God is not good or God does not exist. Right? If God is good, he couldn't have created this world. So maybe God exists, but he is a bad God. Or God doesn't exist. Now either of these conclusions are not acceptable by the theistic religion. A theistic religion doesn't want to say that God is not good. Okay? God has to be good. But on the other hand, theistic religion doesn't want to say that God doesn't exist. But then the issue is that how to justify suffering in the world. How to justify suffering in the world. Now particularly, sometimes you can justify grown-up people, adult people, they can be also bad. So bad people get the bad. You can say okay. But what about sometimes infants who are just born, very innocent children, who are not bad at all? Now what about them? Thousands of small innocent children are dead in the wars. You remember I have seen some pictures in the Second World War, truckloads of small children's bodies, truckloads. They are not in coffins or anything. They are just piled one on the other, truckloads of small children. If you saw those pictures, you cannot eat really, because it's so depressing. But so many children have died. For what? Are they bad? They don't know anything about the world. So the question, why so many innocent people die like that if this world was created by a good God? Okay. So this is basically a strong argument against the creation of God. Okay. So now in the Jataka story you find this argument. So when we discuss the arguments against the existence of God, this particular argument, so on the one hand Buddha says there is no God, and then here of course there is a reason why there can't be a God. Okay, why there can't be a God. So basically argument from existence of suffering, or argument from existence of evil. Now let us move into some other important thing. Okay, this is in Pali, Issaro Sabbalokassa, Sache Kappeti Jivitang, and so on. Nidesakari Puriso. Then Sachehi Sabba Loke Brahma Bahu Bhutapati Pajanang Kin Sabbaloke Vidahi Alakin. Why did he make this world so unlucky, bad? King Sabbalokang Nasuki Akasi. Why didn't he make this world happy one? Okay. Okay, here we have, okay, we will go from there. Number 8. Okay. Read this. What is even more important is the nature of the teaching of the Buddha, which assumes the denial of God in nature and also in one's religious life. Now, I consider to be, now I told you, I showed you certain text in the passage where Buddha says there is no God. But actually even more than those things, what I consider to be even more important is look at the nature of the Dhamma. Look at the nature of the practice. Now that is a clear indication that there is no God. Okay? So if you look at the nature of the Buddha's teaching, the key insight of the doctrine of dependent co-origination, Paticcasamuppada, is that everything in the world is interconnected and interdependent. This removes the possibility of Atman and God, which are believed to exist independently. Now, if you take Paticcasamuppada, Paticcasamuppada means dependent co-origination. Now, which means that things arise dependently, right? Things arise dependently. I think in the earlier discussion I showed you dependent origination, like Patthana, can have many different shapes. Sahajata, Anyamanya, Purejata, Pachhajata, and so on, many different. And the Anyamanya means mutual. So basically Paticcasamuppada means dependent origination means things originate dependently. What is the meaning of saying things originate dependently? That means anything that arises, anything that exists, arise and exist depending on many other things, right? Anything that exists depends on many other things. Nothing can exist independently. Nothing can arise independently. When something arises, there are always not one condition, one cause. There are a number of multiple causes. Chakku viññāna to arise, chakkuncha paticca, rupecha. So like that. So there are many causes and conditions for something to arise. Nothing can arise out of nothing. Okay? And also to exist. Even exist also we need lot of causes and conditions. It is pretty clear. Look at yourself, look at your life. In order for our life to exist, how many people are connected to our life? So many, innumerable. You had lunch 2 hours ago. Who cooked the lunch? Who brought the lunch? Who prepared the rice and curry and all that? Who cultivated the rice? Who cleaned the rice? Who brought the rice here? Who cooked the rice here? How many people? Can you imagine how many people are connected? You are wearing clothes. Who made the clothes? Who dyed the clothes? Who cut the clothes and made this thing? How many people? Maybe somewhere in China, somewhere in other countries, they made it. If you just look at, I'm using this pen. Who made it? In what country did it make it? I'm using a watch. Who made it? I'm wearing a chair. I'm using this instrument. Who made it? If you look at, I'm very simple. If you think for our own day-to-day existence, we have thousands of people taking part. Otherwise, we can't exist. You are not making your own clothes. You are not making your own food. Nobody is making our own food, but somebody is making it. Right? Not only that, I mean yes, so it started from mother and father. But what I am just giving a simple example. Our day-to-day existence is impossible without thousands of people. Without thousands of people. If you look at carefully, there are people who produce. There are people who transport. There are people who prepare these things. So the cloth has to be produced somewhere, cloth has to be transported, and then cloth has to be prepared to dress. Shirts don't come like this. Somebody has to make it. Now, simple means is this, what I am trying to show you is existence is dependent, okay? We depend on so many things. Now, if you take the religious concept of Atma, soul, and the God, they are independent. They are not dependent. But if Paticcasamuppada, the doctrine is correct, in the universe, there cannot be any person or anything independent. Okay? That's the argument. Because according to Paticcasamuppada, everything is dependent on many other things. So in such a universe, you cannot have a God who is not dependent on. If there is a God who is dependent on, then of course Buddhism doesn't have a problem. Buddhism can accept that kind of God. But this concept of God is transcendental. What does it mean transcendental? It goes beyond the world. It is not a part of the world. It has nothing to do with the world. Okay? Same thing with Atma. So basically, if you take the Paticcasamuppada doctrine, along with Paticcasamuppada, independently existing God cannot exist. Can you see that point? Actually, doctrinally, we must be able to see these things, okay? Now, usually, I'm sure everybody, you can say avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana. All of you can say sahajata paccayo, purejata paccayo, vigata paccayo, and so on, 24 paccayas. But apply that into these arguments, okay? That is the most important thing. You can remember, you can memorize p a t thana. That's good. But p a t thana philosophy has to be applicable. Otherwise, there is no point. Everybody says p a t thana. But what about the p a t thana philosophy? p a t thana philosophy is really dependent co-origination. So, if dependent co-origination is correct, it is the right doctrine, there can't be existing a God. So therefore, what I would like to say to you is this. Even though there are some places in the teaching where Buddha clearly says that there is no God, actually even more than those places, this is much more important. Okay? This is much more important. And then look at the next one. The Buddhist path of purification is clear proof that there is no role for Savior God in the path. The Four Noble Truth scheme is to be practiced by oneself. Buddha says in the Dhammapada, Tumhehi kiccang atappang akkhataro tathagata. Tumhehi kiccang atappang. Now, look at these two different things. In the theistic religion, the most important virtue is faith. You have faith in the God, and then God is the Redeemer, God saves you. And then in the Buddhist tradition, of course, you have to have faith about the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. But of course, the role of the faith is limited. If you take the Four Noble Truths, Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga, actually this scheme indicates that there is no God, because it talks about the Dukkha, it talks about Samudaya, how Dukkha arises. Now, earlier we were talking about if God is there, God is the creator of the Dukkha, because God created the world. But if you don't believe in creator, if you are suffering according to Buddhism, who is responsible? God or you? For your suffering, for our suffering, who is responsible? God or us? Actually, there is no God to take responsibility. So we are responsible for our own suffering. Now, Four Noble Truths doctrine is that. Four Noble Truths doctrine is that, doctrine says we have Dukkha. What is the Samudaya? What is the Dukkha Samudaya? How does Dukkha arise? Dukkha arises eva metassa kevalassa dukkha khandassa samudayo hoti, right? Avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnana paccaya namarupam, eva metassa kevalassa dukkha khandassa samudayo hoti. How does samudaya happens? Avidya. Where is avidya? In the roof? Here and there? No. Inside. Sankhara? Inside. Vijnana, namarupa, salayatana, passa, vedana, everything is inside. So, the whole suffering and the origin of suffering inside, and then the nirvana and the path. So, ultimately Buddha says, imasmin yeva vyama matte kalebare sanyamhi sanyimhi samanake ahang dukkhancha panyapemi dukkha samudayancha dukkha nirodhancha dukkha nirodhagamini patipadancha. What is the meaning of that? I say in this fathom long body is the all four truths. Dukkha is in this fathom long body, Samudaya is in this fathom long body, Nirodha is in this fathom long body, and Magga is also in this fathom long body. I think this particular thing is something very, very important, because if you take the Four Noble Truths doctrine, in the Four Noble Truth doctrine you can see that there is no place, there is no function for God. Actually, there is no even function for the Buddha. In the Four Noble Truth doctrine, there is no function for the Buddha. Buddha teaches the doctrine, but you have to do the work. So when you do the work, Buddha doesn't come and help you or anything like that. No, Buddha can't come. No, Buddha has attained parinirvana, right? So no Buddha can come to help you. You see, so the structure of Four Noble Truth doctrine is a really good indication. Now, if you look at the religions of the world, you can see that in theistic religions, of course, you have God, okay? And then the most important thing is faith. Faith in God. Now, if you have faith in God, then you are saved. Salvation comes for the. So, faith in God, we can say salvation. Actually, for this, what we have in Buddhism is Dhamma, wisdom, Nirvana. What you have in Buddhism. Now here, this in the theistic religion, what is more important is the faith in God. Faith is the most important thing. The faithful will be rewarded. That's a basic concept. Faithful will be rewarded. Now, if you look at the Dhamma, you can see that Dhamma is what is taught by the Buddha. Now, look at here. There is no Buddha here. Buddha is not mentioned here, because there is no need to mention the Buddha. Buddha said, Yo dhammang passati, somang passati. You see me through the Dhamma. So, Buddha taught the Dhamma. but Buddha is outside here, okay? Buddha taught the Dhamma. So Dhamma is the one we have. Today there is no Buddha, right? Buddha has attained Paranirvana. So Dhamma is there. And how do you realize Dhamma? Through your wisdom. And when you realize the Dhamma through your wisdom, what you get is Nirvana. Here, you have God instead of Dhamma, and then you have faith in the God, and then of course you get salvation. So salvation comes from the faith. Nirvana comes from wisdom. Now, if you look at these two soteriological paths, soteriology means a word we are using in order to indicate the path to salvation, or the Nirvana English term. If you look at these two paths, you can see the Buddhist path is the real proof that there is no God in the world. Now the argument is this: if there is a God in the world to save you, why do you have to do all these things? Tough life. Why do you have to do that? If there is a God as a savior, why somebody has to practice the Buddhist path? Buddhist path is not easy. But why someone has to do that? Because there is no God. If there is a God, Buddha would have said something different. Be faithful to the God, you will be saved. In a way, I'm not saying even that is easy, but in a way you can say that is much easier than practicing the path. Buddha says that this path is very difficult. Buddha says this Dhamma is only to the Panyavantas, those who have wisdom. So Buddhist path is not an easy path. The question is, why do you have to follow this difficult path if there is a God? If there is a God to help you, why do you have to follow this difficult path? Actually, the very reason why people have to follow the difficult path is because there is no God. So according to my understanding, the most important evidence, according to Buddhism, that there is no God is actually the Dhamma. Okay? I mean, even if we don't have any single place where Buddha says there is no God, that really doesn't matter. You look at the nature of the Dhamma, and then you can see why it is so. Going further in this, you can see Buddha says purification or defilement is a result of one's own action. There is no external agency to purify or defile oneself. Suddhi, asuddhi, pacchattam. Nanyo, anyang, visodhaye. You are familiar with that, right? Suddhi, asuddhi, pacchattam. Nanyo, anyang, visodhaye. Suddhi, asuddhi, pacchattam. Purification. Asuddhi means lack of purification. Bota, pacchattam. Individual thing, your own thing. Nanyo, anyang, visodhaye. One cannot purify another. You can't wash any other person. In the same manner, nanyo anyang visode, you can't also defile another person either. Suddhi asuddhi pacchattam. Whether you are purified, whether you are not purified, or it depends on ultimately on you. Now this again you can see that if there is a God to purify you, Buddha would not say this, right? If there is a God to save you, if there is a God to purify you, Buddha will not say this. But Buddha says, Suddhi asuddhi pacchattam, and you are the one. So then, this again you can connect with Attahi Attano Nato. You are the God of yourself. There is no any other God. So purification or defilement is a result of one's own action. There is no external agency to purify or defile oneself. The Buddhist doctrine of karma says that one's maker or breaker is one's own karma, and that one is solely responsible for one's karma and not anyone else. No God to pardon one's sins. Now this is another central idea in Buddhism. Now in the theistic religions, the sins can be pardoned by God. Actually in the Christian religion, a Christian priest can pardon your sins, because when a priest is ordained, that power is supposed to be given, God's power to the person. So in the name of God, he can pardon your sins. But according to Buddhism, there is no pardoning of sins. If you did something wrong, you have to bear the responsibility of that wrong thing you did. Nobody can nullify it. Okay. So karma doctrine is another important thing. Karma doctrine is another important thing that shows that you are your responsibility. You are the own maker or breaker. What makes you out of yourself is up to you. If you do good things, then you will be good. If you do bad things, you will be bad. You will find yourself in a bad situation. Or you do good things, you will find yourself in a good situation. Okay, so karma doctrine is another indication that according to Buddhism there is no God. Because otherwise, if there is a God, the God can pardon all your sins. If you sincerely say, I am sorry, God can pardon it. But in Buddhism, of course, you can be sincerely sorry, but of course, for the things you did, you have to bear the result. For the future, you can make up your mind not to do. That's okay. But for the things you did, you cannot really get rid of these things. So if you take the karma doctrine, you can see that karma doctrine is another key point according to which we can see that there is no overlord or God to help us. If a savior God is there to liberate people from suffering, practicing a difficult moral path will be meaningless. Therefore, the very path taught in Buddhism is premised on the absence of a Redeemer God. Now, this last point I already said to you. The Buddhist path is a long, difficult path. This long, difficult path is there because there is no God. If there is a God, of course, Buddha will not have this long, difficult path. The path will be relatively easy path of faith. But what we have, the path is Dhamma, wisdom. Through wisdom, you realize Dhamma and then you attain Nirvana. Now that is a long and difficult path. Okay. I am not saying that faith in God, if there is, that is easy either. But of course, that's very different. Okay. So in other words, in the theistic religion, what you have is the bhakti, faith or devotion. In Buddhism, what you have is wisdom, the knowledge. But that doesn't mean that there is no element of saddha, element of bhakti, element of prema. Those terms are there. About the Buddha, people can develop those qualities. But Buddha will not come and help you. Okay. Because Buddha is not a God. So now you can see basically why Buddhism holds this view that there is no God and what happens as a result of that. So basically what I did in this discussion today is the denial of the existence of God as non-theistic religion, Jainism and Buddhism. I will be discussing Jainism with you next week. But today basically I focused on Buddhism. So now I showed you there are some people who want to say that Buddhism does not deny the concept of God. Some say that Buddha never talked about the concept of God. And then John Hicks' idea that Buddhism and all the religions have this concept of transcendental. Difference between the two sets of religions is theistic religions articulate it in personal terms. Buddhism and other religions articulate it in non-personal terms. And then I said that all these interpretations are wrong according to Buddhism. And then I gave you some instances where in the Pali canon, Tripitaka, where Buddha clearly says that there is no God. So we have Rattapala Sutta, we have Dhammapada, Attahi Attano Natho, and then also we have Mahatithayatana Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya. And then Jataka story This Jataka story is very interesting and important because it articulates this very important argument against the existence of God, namely the argument from the presence of suffering. If suffering, if dukkha, if evil exists in the world, then how can there be a God? So this argument is very old ancient arguments you find in the Buddhist texts. And then finally what I said is even more important thing is you take the Paticca and also Four Noble Truths. Both these teachings indicate that there is no God, because according to Paticca everything in the universe is interconnected, dependent. Okay. Now God is considered to be independent and transcendental, and Atma is also considered to be like that. But if Paticca doctrine is true, you can't have anything independent, anything. Only thing we talk about is a nirvana. Nirvana is the beyond the the concept world. So, but nirvana is not God. And then Four Noble Truths. The scheme of Four Noble Truth, you have to practice it. So the very idea is that the Four Noble Truths contains that there is no God. And then finally this concept, by following the Four Noble Truths, Attahi Attanonato, you are your savior, and Suddhi Asuddhi Pachattam, your purification or impurification is up to you. Nobody can help you to be purified or impurified. So as a result, you can see that in Buddhism, there are two types of reasons. One thing is clearly Buddha says that there are instances in the discourses that there is no God. Second is indirectly but more importantly, the nature of the Dhamma, nature of the practice shows that there is no external help. Okay folks, what I did up to this point is last couple of sessions I showed you how Christian tradition has presented the arguments in order to prove the existence of God. Now today in this discussion I showed you how Buddhism says that there is no God. So when you put all these things together you can have a fairly comprehensive view. So I will stop at this point, allowing you to ask any questions or make any comments if you have. I think, yeah, interesting observation, and your answer is also in your question there, because that whole story shows that that Brahma was mistaken. It was a misunderstanding. So, misunderstanding not your, but that Brahma's misunderstanding. So, in other words, this whole story about the Brahma, who thought that he created other Brahmas, and other Brahmas thought that they were created by this Brahma, that's a total misunderstanding. Yeah, it's a false understanding. Simply because he lived for a long time in this Brahma Vimana, nobody was there. Then he was thinking, it is good if somebody else comes. One comes, so then he thought, I who created. But then whole story is really, yeah, this Brahma. Actually, the interesting thing is this. Word Brahma, Brahman is used in two senses. One thing is Brahma as a creator God. Okay, but in the Buddhist tradition, Brahma is used in a different sense, Reverend. Brahmas are the people who have gained jhana and also magga. Up to anagami, you can be a Brahma, but that doesn't mean that they are. So this particular Brahma's thinking is really the wrong view. It's a misunderstanding. There is another view, this one about the Brahma called Baka. Baka Brahma thought that the same thing, but Buddha went and said that this is a wrong understanding. And then there is another incident where a follower of the Buddha goes and asks from this Brahma, and then a story says that he took the monk aside and said, "Don't ask me, I don't know it. You go and ask from the Buddha." So like that. So you can see this whole thing is this belief is a misunderstanding about it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other views? Questions? Yeah, if you don't have any more questions, we can meditate 5 minutes or something, or what? Okay, so in the absence of any more questions, let me wind up today's discussion. On the 24th, I will be talking in this hour, I will be talking to you on Jainism. Okay, thank you very much.